Kalimdor had been taken over by Rand al'Thor, who in his moment of triumph announced to everyone that he was the true Dragon Reborn. Many throughout the realm had begun to see the boy as the awaited savior, while others saw him as a threat to the established order. The Isle, who managed to sneak into the Stone of Tears, announced the next destination of the prophesized one. In addition, it was to turn out that unexpected allies were also to be found among the Forsaken. For several days after acquiring the sword that is not a sword, Rand busied himself receiving flattery and assurances of loyalty from Tyrene lords. In his moments free from these stuffy meetings, he devoted himself to studying the Cairhien cycle to fully understand what awaited him and what he must do as a Dragon Reborn, while also spending time with Thom Merrilin, who taught him how to deal with Dais Daimar. In addition, while searching the fortress's warehouses, he found a certain Angreal in the shape of a bald, fat man with a sword on his lap, which he decided to take with him. The warehouses contained a wide variety of magical items. Among them was a Ter Angreal in the shape of a redstone doorframe, which served as a portal into the realm of the Islefin, a snake-like people who provided answers to 3 questions. Rand and Mat passed through this doorframe almost at the same time, without knowing about each other. The Dragon Reborn asked 2 questions, only one of which was answered. Calthon, meanwhile, had each of his questions answered. The first of these, should I go home to help my people, was prompted by Perrin's trip to 2 Rivers, where the White Cloaks were to bother the inhabitants there in search of dark friends. The snake-like people's response was, "You must go to Rhuidean." Intrigued and not very satisfied with the answer, he asked a second question, "Why should I?" Again he got the answer that was insufficient in his opinion, which was, "If you do not go to Rhuidean, you will die." Trying to find out why his trip to Rhuidean was so important, he asked a third question, "Why will I die if I do not go to Rhuidean?" This time, the Islefin gave a more elaborate answer. "You will have sidestepped the thread of fate, left your fate to drift on the winds of time, and you will be killed by those who do not want that fate to be fulfilled." Despite his protests that the answers he had received were deeply unsatisfying, the hosts of this realm urged Matrin to return to his world. But the boy, spouting off swears and refusing to leave, forced, as it were, more answers to the question asked, "What fate are you talking about?" The Islfin's response was, "To marry the daughter of the 9 moons, to die and live again, and live once more a part of what was, to give up half the light of the world to save the world." Throwing the boy out of their world, they bade him farewell, titling him Son of Battles, Trickster and Gambler. Reluctantly, Calthon decided to set out for Rhuidean, the only permanent settlement on the Isle Waste, but he wasn't going to be the only one heading that way. Rand was also headed in that direction, but before al'Thor went there, he had to deal with the Tyrene High Lords and High Ladies. On the advice of Thom Merrilin, he decided to send away from the Tyr those who were plotting against him. Under the pretext of bringing order to Cairhien, which was in chaos after the death of the last king, the most influential of the lords, along with the other High Lords, Goyam, Maracon, Hern, Siman and Arakam. The expedition was to be funded by High Lord Torian and Yama. In addition, at the behest of the Dragon Reborn, High Lady Altema was to join the army, whose purpose was to provide food for the common people of Cairhien. When the situation was stabilized, Rand left Kalimdor in the Heart of Stone, again securing it with the Weaves of the One Power from being taken over by unauthorized persons, and together with Mat, Warrain, Egwene and the Isle, led by Rhuarc, left the Stone of Tyr, and with the help of the Portal Stone, moved everyone to the Rhuidean area. After arriving at the only city in the Threefolds land, Rand went before the Wise Ones, who could grant him entry into the city. On the way, Rhuarc explained that only Isle had the right to enter the city, so al'Thor demanded permission, citing his mother, who had been one of them. The Wise Ones agreed, explaining that because his father was Isle, he could enter. Mat also demanded entry, but was not granted permission. Only the intercession of the Dragon Reborn changed the women's minds. Rhuidean was a city erected by the Gen Isle clan, which was long gone by this period of history. The purpose of the place was to protect any magical items that Dashine Isle, Aes Sedai's helpers from the Age of Legends, would hide in a safe place during the breaking of the world. Upon entering the dense, fog-covered city, which looked as if someone had suddenly abandoned it and decided not to continue construction, Rand found himself at a column-shaped crystal ter'angreal, where he saw the entire history of the Isle from the perspective of his distant ancestors. He saw, among other things, the incident at the University of Kolam Dan, what life was like during the breaking of the world, and how the Isle came to be, or rather, how the Dashain Isle split into the Tuatha'an, who still followed the Way of the Leaf, and the Dedicated, among whom the Gen Isle, the true Dedicated, who remained true to the old pacifist traditions, stood out. At the same time, Matt used another ter'angreal that looked exactly like the one in the Stone of Tyr, but after passing through the redstone doorframe, he found himself in a world of creatures that looked not like snakes, but had the heads of foxes. Hoping that the last 3 answers of the Islefin would be explained to him, he asked 3 questions, but was answered with silence. In anger, he requested to fill the gaps in his memory that appeared after he was separated from the dagger from Shadar Logoth, to which these beings, called Ilfin, responded by giving him memories of generals and strategists from earlier periods of the Third Era, making him the greatest military commander of that period. Understanding what this world was all about, Matt demanded that he no longer have to deal with the Aes Sedai, for which he received a medallion in the shape of a fox's head. Wearing it, he became immune to the One Power. His third wish was to return to Rudian. Here, however, there was a complication. Ilfin in their world were striking a bargain. A price had to come for 3 wishes, which Matt did not set, so the fox-headed people decided to set it themselves. They made it possible for him to return to the city of Isle by hanging him on a weapon called a Shandarai, spread on the branches of the Tree of Life, Avendasora. Rand, who emerged from between the crystal columns, saw his friend hanging and immediately proceeded to resuscitate him. When Matt woke up, he began to look at the gifts from the Ilfin. The weapon was engraved with ravens, and the inscription, "Thus is our treaty written, thus is agreement made. Thought is the arrow of time, memory never fades. What was asked is given, the price is paid." After leaving Rodian, Rand revealed the tattooed dragons on both of his forearms to the assembled Isle, announcing that he was Kara Khan, the chief of the chiefs. The Isle accepted this, except for Couladin, a member of the Shido clan, whose brother entered Rodian before Rand and did not return. He left the assembly, saying that the Shido would never accept Althor as Kara Khan. After Couladin's departure, the Dragon Reborn learned of his mother, who had joined the Isle, coming from the wetlands, as the Isle were accustomed to call the area west of the Spine of the World, and of the death of his real father, Janduin, who died at the hands of someone who looked like his wife. Wanting to show in front of all the Isle that he was the chief of the chiefs and unite them on Tamon Gaidon, Althor went with Ruark to the Alkedal, the Golden Bowl. Heading to the circular canyon, they stopped at Cold Rock's Hold, one of the septs of Tardad Isle, where Althor looked at Isle customs, such as the concept of Giato, honor and duty, and Gaishain, those sworn to peace in battle. There they were joined by a group of peddlers, whom Rand recognized as Dark Friends. Upon reaching the canyon, it turned out that Couladin had declared himself Kara Khan, showing the dragons on his hands. As it turned out later, this forgery was the work of one of the Forsaken, named Asmodean. Rand decided to confront Couladin, and in front of all those gathered, he revealed the story of the Isle he had seen in Rodian. Until that moment, this was knowledge reserved only for clan chiefs. Many Isle did not want to believe it, and preferred to support Couladin. But Baal, the Goshen Isle chief, was the first to declare Rand Kara Khan, and the one who comes with the dawn. Immediately thereafter, the other Isle chiefs proclaimed the boy with the same titles. Unable to accept this, the false chief of chiefs attacked Rand, but was stopped by the Maidens of the Spear. Chaos was unleashed, which was only stopped by Althor, who summoned rain for the first time in the history of the Isle Waste. As the situation was beginning to calm down, the Dragon Reborn turned to Lanfear, who was travelling among other peddlers. She revealed to him that Asmodean, whom she had taken with her to the Isle Waste, had gone to Rudian to find a certain item. Rand followed him, and after a short battle, defeated the Forsaken. At the same time, Lanfear arrived in Rudian and put a shield on Asmodean, preventing him from using Sidon at his full potential. he threatened him that if he did not teach Rand to channel, he would tell the other Chosen that he had changed sides and joined the Dragon Reborn. Upon returning to the Al-Kedal, it appeared that the Shaido had left, led by Couladin and a wise one named Savannah. Aiel from other clans also left the canyon, but did not follow the Shaido, and others plunged into bleakness, abandoning violence in any form or choosing to become Gaishain. Following Couladin's trail, it became clear to Rand that he intended to lead Shaido to the Westlands. In pursuing him, the Isle had to fend off occasional attacks by Shadowspawn, including Darkhounds, designed to slow their march. Most likely this was part of Lanfear's plan, outlined with fellow Forsaken Ravin, Greendale and Samael. What was certain, however, was that Ravin was staying in Cairhien using the name Lord Gabriel. Meanwhile, the Battle of Cairhien was about to begin. 5 miles from Cairhien, Tairen High Lord Wiraman Saniago came to Rand with 900 Tyr cavalry and 1,000 Cairhenian cavalry and over 1,700 Cairhenian infantry gathered along the way. Wiraman came to Lord Dragon to bring him news of pirates and other brigands raiding from Ilian territory. Accompanied by Isle chieftains and the Tairen High Lord, the Dragon Reborn, together with Mat, developed a plan to attack the Shaido, who were besieging Cairhien. Althor had 7 Isle clans against them: Sharad, Rain, Tardad, Goshen, Nakai, Tominel, and Charin, in numbers about twice that of the Shaido, as well as forces brought by Wiraman. The problem was that the Miagoma, Kadara, Darin, and Shiande clans, numbering about 150,000, did not express their support for either Rand or Couladin. This forced the division of the Dragon's forces into 2 halves. One, including Tyrenians and Cairhenians, was to tie up the Shaido with fighting, while the other half was divided into 3 parts. 2 parts were positioned to block and repel a possible attack by the neutral clans, and one was to force the besieging Isle to move north beyond the Gailin River. The siege had begun several days earlier when Couladin's forces arrived outside the city. Cairhien was defended by local forces and troops from Tyr sent by Rand. However, they were weakened by famine, as the city itself was overpopulated because of refugees who fled from the Isle. The Shaido leader demanded surrender, and when the defenders refused, he sent his warriors to burn the gate and force their way inside. The attack was repelled, and the defenders managed to douse the flames, forcing the Shaido to surround the city. When Rand arrived and realized the situation, he ordered the construction of a platform from which he could observe the battle and support his loyal Isle with the One Power. To protect against attacks from Couladin's warriors, the platform was guarded by the Maidens of the Spear, Fadarais Ma, while the rest of the deployed forces attacked the Shaido from the southeast. However, the hilly terrain meant that instead of a major battle, the clash was divided into a series of smaller skirmishes, where individual groups tried to outmaneuver each other. One such group was the Tyrenians, led by Melanril Esigara and Estine Andiama, and the Cairhenians, led by Deirid Ondin and Talmanes de Lavinde. Mat Calthon, who decided to go to a safer place than Cairhien, noticed that these troops were walking into an ambush set by the Shaido. Seeing that most of the warriors, like their commanders, were taking part in battle for the first time in their lives, he decided to take command of them. Half of the Tyren cavalry, led by Melanril, ignored Matrim's commands and charged straight toward the Isle, hoping to gain the glory in the charge. After a few moments, the entire unit was wiped out, while the infantry square, consisting of Cairhenian pikemen, archers and crossbowmen, and Tyren cavalry, took the brunt of the attack. As the Isle engaged in battle, Mat and Talmanes, at the head of the Cairhenian cavalry, attacked the Shaido from the flanks, performing a double pincer maneuver and forcing the Shaido to retreat. During the battle, Mat and his unit repelled 3 other attacks by Couladin's warriors. The first was won with the help of Rand, who used lightning to drive away the Isle. The second they repelled themselves, pushing the enemy north, and in the third, they received help from the Isle warriors loyal to Rand, who attacked the Shaido's rear. Around noon, one of Cairhien's gates opened, and the city's garrison attacked the besiegers. After initial success, the Shaido managed to repel this sortie, and, numbering 3,000, attempted to enter the city. This attempt failed because Rand channeled 2 lightning bolts that killed the entire squad. Shortly afterwards, lightning struck the platform that Rand was on with Avienda and Egwene. The structure collapsed, killing several Maidens of the Spear. Rand guessed that this was the work of Samael, who was in Ilion, and he was also behind the raids of pirates and brigands in Tyr. He moved closer to the city to support his loyal troops from there. Around the same time, Couladin personally led 5,000 warriors to break through to the rear of Rand's forces and kill Karakan, but he was met by Mat's force marching straight towards him. He attacked the Cairhenian pikemen with all his might, wanting to get the Dragon Reborn as quickly as possible. Calthon decided to lure Shaido into a trap by feigning retreat, delaying the moment when the two sides were to clash. In addition, he stationed his archers on the nearby hills to harass Couladin's warriors. As the Shaido attacked the pike wall, the warriors shouted, "Protect the Lord Dragon," drawing Couladin out and dueling Mat. After an even fight, Calthon managed to kill the Shaido leader, whose head was stuck on a spear. Following the death of their leader, the rest of the Shaido warriors began an orderly retreat across the Gaelin River, destroying the river bridges behind them and heading towards Kinslayer's dagger. After the battle, 20,000 Shaido were taken prisoner as Gaishain, and many more died on the battlefield. The losses of the dragon forces are unknown, but probably much less than those of Couladin's forces. An important event that occurred after the battle was the formation, or rather the reconstitution, of the Band of the Red Hand. The Tyren lords, Nelesian Aldiaya and Adorian Salona, and the Cairhenian noble, Talmanes Delavinda, who had fought under Matrim's command, proclaimed him their general and swore to fight under him, admiring his leadership abilities. Another result of the battle, which was a decisive victory for the Karakan forces, was the joining of clans that were initially neutral. The young Calthon was to demonstrate his skills once again when he suggested a surprise attack on Camelin. But first things first. After relieving Cairhien from siege, Rand entered the city, where he resolved the problems that had arisen between Cairhenian inhabitants and Tyren nobles and soldiers. He also received 2 letters from the White Tower, sent by Elida, the new Amelin seat, and her Keeper of the Chronicles, Alviarin Freiten, ordering him to come to the White Tower. It wasn't long before rumours began circulating around the city about the death of the Queen of Andor. Hearing this, Mat decided to confer with Rand on what to do in this situation. The Dragon Reborn came up with a simple answer: Ravin had to be killed. However, the plans were thwarted by Lanfear, who showed up at the city docks. Furious at Rand for cheating on her with Avienda, one of the Fadarais Mai, Maidens of the Spear, she decided to get rid of her and Egwene. Rand stood up for them, but was unable to put the Forsaken to death. Help came from Moiraine, who pushed the woman through the redstone doorframe brought from Rhuidean, falling with her into the realm of the Eilfin. After a moment, the Ta'angreal caught fire from a lightning strike and melted as if it were made of wax. That same afternoon, Althor decided to strike at the capital of Andor. On the advice of a friend, he gathered a small force and moved to Camelin with Sidon's help. The city was occupied by the Trollocs and protected by Ravin from channeling the One Power, so when Rand appeared in the city, lightning struck when he came out of the magic gate with his Isle, killing Asmodene, Mat, Avienda, and several other Isle. Enraged, Rand rushed towards the palace, while the rest of the Isle began fighting the Trollocs. Althor chased the Forsaken around the palace, even moving after him to Tel'aran'rhiod. There he caught up with Ravin, whom he killed using a huge balefire. Removing Ravin from the pattern, he even undid the lightning strike, bringing all those killed back to life. Soon after, the city was recaptured from the hands of the Trollocs, and Rand settled into the palace, declaring Elaine Trakand the new Queen of Andor. At the same time, he issued a decree in which, as the Dragon Reborn, he declared that all men who had discovered the ability to carry the One Power could not be pursued or gentled, and that they were under his personal protection. Uniting the Isle and bringing them to the Westlands made Rand a powerful player in the political arena, but this did not make him fewer enemies. Getting rid of another one of the Forsaken increased the chances of victory in Tarmon Gai'don, but Samael still remained elusive, hiding in Ilion, and the empty throne of Andor could contribute to another civil war, as it did before the Isle War. The announcement of amnesty for male channelers was to have repercussions in the future. To know what this decision led to, ensure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.